Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Joe Tyrrell, and welcome back to the Run Off the GP Blog Podcast, Season 2, Season 2023, whatever you want to call it. We are back. Toby, as ever, is joining me. How are you, Toby?
I'm good, thank you, Joe. How are you?
I'm very, very well, thank you, Toby. Joining us this week is GP Blog Editor-in-Chief Matt. Matt, you're gonna be appearing this season along with some other guests. So how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. I'm actually really pleased to join and see this side of the podcast arm, so to speak.
Yeah, sort of a behind the scenes look. It's a less functional operation than you'd expect, but the functioning on the track is back. The Bahrain Grand Prix kicked off the 2023 season, and we weren't treated to a barnstormer, but it was at the same time a bad race. Which one of you wants to kick us off?
I
I'll
don't
get
mind jumping in, or if Max wants to.
go on,
Go on,
Toby.
Toby.
Okay. So I just want to start off and say how good of a weekend overall I think it was. For a season opener, I think there was a lot of even Friday felt good because of how well Fernando Alonso was performing and all the drama that came with that. So that leading up to Saturday with a good qualifying and then the race itself, there were points in the race where it was a bit dry, but that's what you've got to expect with any race because it happens everywhere. But overall, I think what a great weekend and a great season opener.
Yeah,
I,
I
I
agree
like the
with
point about.
that.
Sorry, Matt. I like the point about the whole weekend as a whole. I thought it was a really upbeat weekend.
Yeah, I agree. There's like loads of hype around the weekend around Aston Martin. That was a really good storyline that kind of it was embedded in the weekend, and actually the story from preseason testing it rolled on, and you could kind of see a little connection there. And then with qualifying, yeah, we kind of found out the answers that we were all waiting to hear.
Yeah, the Aston Martin story. It's just brought some life to the weekend, and I think it's great that actually one of these midfield teams, and probably not the one we would have said given last season, has managed to turn it around and bridged the gap.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's quite odd to be honest. Like you said, it wasn't kind of maybe before preseason testing. It was no one would have said. I think that Aston Martin would be the team to potentially fight with the big boys. But as Matt briefly mentioned, the initial thoughts that were made from preseason testing all indicated that there was a chance that they could do this. And then Fernando Alonso has gone out and grabbed the podium on the season opener of the 2023 season. Like if someone told me that at the end of last year, I'd be laughing at them saying, "Right, jog on, let's make a real prediction here." But yeah, it's just Lance Stroll as well. How he's performing is well, or how he performed. Sorry, because it's only one race, but coming back from that injury and seeing him grow from Friday, where he couldn't even turn the wheel properly, to then putting in probably one of the best races of his career, I think is quite extraordinary to see.
Yeah, a special mention for Lance Stroll. We'll go into him deeper, but it's not been easy. And to be fair, it's not been easy for Aston Martin in the build up, given everything that surrounded Lance Stroll. The fact that they've gone and pulled out A, the performance, and B, the result, fair play to them.
yeah. I mean, Lance Stroll, it was like 12 days, I think, or 13 days from when he had his surgery on his arm, on his wrist. That's remarkable. Imagine breaking your wrists and returning to play football or rugby or whatever sport in like literally 2 weeks. So to do that in Formula One with the forces that they have for the duration that they have, it's not just the race; it's the whole weekend. Plus, he did a race distance on Wednesday in the simulator. So yeah, impressive stuff to get back to fitness. I think it's a testament actually to the doctors, but also his will and his want to perform. That's probably been questioned a little bit, maybe about his career, perhaps unfairly. And yeah, I guess he kind of stood up and proved himself.
It's probably been criticised. Well, criticised because people don't think he deserves his place there. But fair play. I was going to say Stroll will get more of a mention later from me, but yeah, really, really did show that grit and determination, which arguably people didn't really realise he had in him. But we haven't even mentioned the race winner yet. Normally, mainly because we spent every weekend last year talking about the same man, and we're going to do something similar again this year, probably. Max Verstappen won the Bahrain Grand Prix by 11 and a half seconds or something. It was another ridiculous performance from another ridiculous driver in a ridiculous car, wasn't it, Toby?
It's just it's kind of a bit annoying that it's continued with Red Bull being so good, but you can't take anything away from them. It's just there was a bit of drama at the start of the race where Checo started slow, and I was oh maybe someone will pit Verstappen, but he just went out, and then at one point I think he had like a 40-second lead or something ridiculous like that, and it's actually just amazing as to how good he is and how good Red Bull are. And I think it's safe to say that we're going to see another year of dominance from them.
Yeah, me and another.
Doubt in that race. Never one doubt whether somebody would beat him. There was never any question mark over whether, well, if Ferrari do this strategy, they'll win, or they could win, or if Perez does this, he might become under threat. There was never ever any challenge whatsoever. Throwing back to when Hamilton was at the front in a similar sort of position, maybe memory isn't serving me correctly, but I always seem to remember there was some sort of question mark over whether he would actually hang on, or there always seems to be something there that would put a bit of doubt in the mind.
Well, if we look back to 2008 is a long time ago. I can't remember what happened during that season, but 2014, Rosberg was good, and the gap, that title win is masked by the fact that Abu Dhabi was double points and Rosberg retired and Hamilton won the race. 2015, Hamilton was probably a bit more dominant, but Rosberg was still there. 2016, he obviously didn't win. 2017, Vettel and Ferrari bottled that. They should have been a lot closer, if not winning it. Similarly in 2018, in my opinion. 2019, 2020, whatever. And then 2021, obviously. So there was always someone there to keep Hamilton in check somewhat if he had a bad weekend. Whereas this Red Bull and this Verstappen form is just absurd. Me and Adam, another GP blog editor, were saying earlier about sort of the most dominant teams in sport history. And I think we spoke about the Australian women's cricket team and then Mercedes between 2014 and 2020 and 2021. But this Red Bull dominance hasn't been as long, but it's arguably been way more emphatic. It's been ridiculous in my opinion. I've just gone off on one a little bit, but it's been mental. You run out of words for it, and this is the situation we found ourselves in so many times, and we're only one race into the season, but you do run out of superlatives for it.
And it's very, very impressive, isn't it? I mean, I had a similar sort of thought. I guess that's kind of the big question that's going to run through this season if those kind of races continue. Is the Verstappen dominance equal or greater than Hamilton and Mercedes' dominance? Not in terms of longevity or in terms of season after season, but in terms of the race by race. This is unbelievable and unbeatable. Untouchable, I think, was a word I used in the report on GP blog. So crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair play to Red Bull and Max Verstappen, even with their wind tunnel punishment. They seem to have absolutely smashed it already this season. But the season's a long one. Is it the longest in history? So only time will tell. Let's get on to our winners and losers, lads. Toby, you kicked off the episode, so Matt, you can kick off the winners and losers. Give me your winner.
My winner. My big winner this weekend is Sergio Perez. Particularly with the lapping qualifying. He was, if you looked at the sector times, in sector 1, he absolutely matched Verstappen, pretty much equal. Sector 2, he wasn't that far behind, less than a tenth. And then sector 3 was, again, literally not very far behind. I think that was the big sort of question mark going into this season for Red Bull in terms of the second seat alongside Verstappen with Daniel Ricciardo in the background. And now, well, Sergio Perez seems to have solved these issues. I think this is the first concrete evidence that we've got of him actually closing that gap and having success in what they wanted to achieve. And actually, it's really rather painful for Ferrari as well, or whoever the closest rivals will be throughout the season, because last year, the reason why Verstappen and Red Bull weren't able to win the title earlier was because that P2 was often up for grabs. And if Perez continues this kind of form, then goodness knows what will happen and how early they'll wrap it up. One thing I would say was his bad start, but I thought after that bad start, I thought he was aggressive into turn one. And I think if that happened this time last year, he probably would have dropped to P4, P5, maybe even worse. So, yeah, I think that was good for him.
He got his elbows out, didn't he, Toby?
Yeah, he got stuck in. He knew that his start wasn't the best, and then was like, right, I've got to find a way to get back up somewhere, and then had a stellar race. So I think you can obviously talk about Verstappen and how dominant he was, but then you've got to mention Perez because of the fact they finished at 1-2. I think it was something like I could be plucking a fact out of nowhere, but it was the first qualifying 1-2 and race finish 1-2 for Red Bull or something. There was a fact where it was something like that.
Yeah, no, I heard something like that. Something like yeah. No, I think he might be something. There's something along those lines, which is right. That's for sure. Because I remember them saying about it on commentary. So yeah, fair play, Sergio Perez. That's a great shout for your first winner of the season, Matt. I like that a lot.
10
Toby,
out of 10.
yeah, 10 out of 10. Oh, Matt, we'll come back to you in just a second. You've got another pick, but Toby, your winner, please.
We've already mentioned them kind of a fair bit before we even mentioned Verstappen, but my win is Aston Martin. I think you can't really speak about winners and not include them. A podium and I believe a sixth place finish for Stroll. I think at least I might be wrong.
Sainz fourth.
Hamilton fifth. Stroll
Yeah.
sixth. I
Stroll
think.
sixth, yeah.
God, I'm gonna get called out if I'm wrong there.
Yeah.
But,
No, that's right. That's right.
But I think overall it's just a absolutely mega performance, and it's nice to see. Like we've already mentioned, it's nice to see a midfield team get up there, get their elbows out, and push. Obviously, it's not. Well, it's hard to fight for a win, but if you can't win, you got to try and get on the podium. So seeing Alonso on there, I think, has made a lot of people happy.
Yeah. And as I said, I wanted to give Lance Stroll a special mention because I'll be honest, I sort of woke up this morning thinking, could Lance Stroll just maybe not race this weekend? Just because he has struggled with some pretty big injuries, and he couldn't turn the wheel properly. There's been all that going on this weekend, and I wouldn't have been surprised if Aston Martin could have said to him, "Mate, just leave it," because that's actually dangerous. He obviously has passed the safety checks, but not being able to turn the steering wheel is a pretty big thing. So fair play to him, and he's got a mega result. Matt, I'll come back to you.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of a wild card one, this, but Williams, one of my dark horses.
Maybe I'm getting greedy and carried away with all this fame of being on the podcast, but no.
No, go for it.
Williams, I thought they had a really good weekend overall, and to get some points or get both drivers quite close up there was quite impressive. They compared to their qualifying time last year, so Bahrain 22 compared to Bahrain 23, they gained 1.2 seconds, which was the second most in the whole field, way above Mercedes, even above Red Bull. So yeah, quite a strong weekend for them. And when you think back to last year, they were finishing bottom pretty much every single race, or certainly of the championship. Then they should be pleased with themselves.
At the start of the week, when I was doing my predictions, I had Logan Sargent to finish dead last, and that might still happen. However, he was within one place or two places of Albon in qualifying, or they lined up alongside each other, didn't they, in qualifying? I'm pretty certain
they did, but I believe that was because Gasly had to drop down to 20th.
Yeah. So Albon was 15th, Sargent was 16th on the grid. So Sargent within one place of his teammate on his F1 debut, that's good. And within two of the race result, I think that's a good weekend for Logan Sargent on his F1 debut and the best of the rookies by a mile.
Yeah, I remember now. He actually in qualifying he had the same time as Lando Norris, didn't he? So the only time he didn't make it into the only reason he didn't make it into Q2 was because Norris got his lap in first. So I think you can't, like you said, that's a very good performance for his first time getting in an F1 car. It technically should have been in Q2 if it wasn't for him finishing his lap like a minute later. And then in the race, I think he dropped down quite a bit at the start, I think, but I think that was just off the opening lap, and then he managed to fight his way back up. And like you said, finishing I think 2 places behind Albon is mega from him.
Yeah. Well done, Williams. You've gone under the radar. Dark horses, as I said. Let's go on to losers. Matt, you've got a bit of a left field pick here. Liveries. Now, I love a good livery, especially under lights in Bahrain. You didn't like the liveries.
No, I didn't actually. I was quite annoyed and disappointed. I thought with this black carbon and that, I quite like that from a sporting point of view. I thought, yeah, could be a little bit touch and go, but during testing and practice, even qualifying, I thought, oh, we've got away with it. It looks pretty good. But on that first lap, I think there was that run of cars, Mercedes, Aston Martin. I think there was Valtteri Bottas embedded in there as well, and I couldn't really tell any of them apart for quite a while. I had to have a proper good look at who was driving these cars. So yeah, I thought it was a bit of a shocking weekend from the liveries, if I'm honest.
I remember looking on race pictures throughout the weekend for pictures for various videos, and there were a few cars that you couldn't quite identify if they were slightly dark, and it's like, especially if they're from a long way away, and it's like, well, what car's that? But
On black tarmac, black wheels.
yeah, under floodlights,
yeah,
it didn't look great, but maybe that's one for them to ponder. Maybe they can develop a different color carbon fiber if that's even possible. Dye the carbon fiber or something.
I've heard it is possible, but yeah, I think by the time you add it in and all the cost and the weight of actually changing the carbon, it's pointless in the end, I think.
Yeah. Well, losers. This could be the biggest loser in runoff history, and I laughed at Lando Norris this morning or this at lunchtime when he said, "I don't think it's as bad as the media have made out." I thought McLaren was shocking, and Toby, they're your loser.
Yeah, I'm gonna do my classic and keep it short and simple because I feel like you have a fair bit to say on this, Joe, maybe. But it's just, I think it was 5 or 6 pit stops for Lando Norris. Oh, I think there was a pneumatic something or other. I'm not good with mechanical side of things, but I remember them mentioning it, and it was just the pace didn't seem there in the long run, but there was short periods where Lando looked like he could get a little bit out of the car at least. But to be the first retiree and then finish last of the non-retirees, I think you just got to count this weekend out and move on to the next one.
I have a little bit to say. I just thought McLaren have, as I mentioned last season, McLaren have gone down in my estimations quite a lot. They used to be one of my favourite teams, and now they're not. Purely because of the way they treated Daniel Ricciardo. And I feel like it's a little bit of karma. Like they're just shocking. The season it happened last year, and luckily they salvaged it somewhat. But the season will pass them by, and it will be done before. We had this conversation a few times. The season just passed them by last year, I thought, by the time they were any good, and they had very little to play for. So yeah, I don't really know. McLaren I thought was shocking, bit embarrassing really.
Are they missing Andreas Seidel?
It's a good shout. Like the one thing they've you'd have thought a steady pair of hands would have just steadied the ship, kept everything a bit calm. All right, it's going to be difficult, but we'll ride it out. And now they haven't got that.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening really. Generally, yeah, it's a bit of a mystery, isn't it, for McLaren? They've definitely taken a step back.
Yeah, a massive step back. Matt, you've got another loser as well.
Me again?
Yeah. Toto Wolff.
Yeah, well, yeah, what can you say? Like, for him, that has to be a brutal blow. Yes, the car wasn't that great last season and they weren't competitive for the World Championship. But to be beaten comfortably by a team they supply engines for, that has to be painful. That's a serious question mark when somebody's got the same engine and they're doing a better job than you. How brutal is that? I mean, Wolf was saying it was one of the worst racing days of his career or something of his life or something along those lines. And so that means he's classing this in the same category as Abu Dhabi 2021. He's classing this as the worst sort of feeling, I guess, that you can get. And I get it really does show how far Mercedes have fallen and how far they've got to come to regain that track performance.
I was watching the coverage before lights out, and I don't know whether I'm making this up, but I'm convinced I saw a quote on Sky from Toto Wolff saying how he had just accepted that they completely got their concept wrong. Before even the first race of the season, they decided to go with it. It's clearly not working. It's like, no, this is the wrong concept. Like, if you're one race into the season and you're writing off your concept already, that's not good. And they managed to salvage it last year, but they'll want to do it quicker this year than they did last year. Otherwise, it's nothing to play for. So,
is it too raw to speak about your predictions?
Look, the GP blog faithful know I have a track record with bold predictions. I think my reasoning behind it was the fact that they're a wounded animal. However, they might still be wounded. They might not have patched themselves up yet. I don't know. I think, right, if they had a competitive car, if they had the Ferrari, right, with their two drivers, I think they'd be up there. I reckon. Not Charles Leclerc's Ferrari, because he might be a loser. But a Ferrari. I think they'd be competitive, but they're maybe a bit too stubborn, like I am, stuck to their guns with this package, and it's backfired.
You know what though, and I wonder what Toby thinks about this, is that they have something up their sleeve. They seem to. Is this that message from Toto Wolff before the race? Is that an indication that is he saving face for when they do switch concepts in a few races time? Or I know as well in the post session, Lewis Hamilton said that what we've got in the wind tunnel, we need it tomorrow. So, is there something in the wind tunnel ready?
Or I get what you're saying, or maybe was it him covering the fact he knew they were going to struggle today and was just like, we may as well just own up to it before rather than making ourselves look a bit silly after the race. I'm not sure, to be honest. It's interesting because like Hamilton said on Friday, I believe, that the feeling in the car just wasn't there. And I think George Russell said that as well. But they were saying in pre-season testing it wasn't too bad, but now it's worse. So I don't know what has happened between then and now. But who knows? For all we know, they could come in to the next race in Saudi Arabia and be up there in the top. I doubt it, but they could be fighting with Red Bull. It's a weird one. It's a really weird one.
I feel like we don't learn much. I feel like they're very secretive, Mercedes, and we don't learn much because they're quite like left field in terms of their concept and their package compared to the rest of the grid. I feel like we don't learn much from them until we see something drastic. Like we don't learn about the little gains. We just it just sort of one day it pops up. They'll change loads of stuff on Russell's car one week and he'll struggle one week. They'll change a load of stuff on Hamilton's the next. And 1 week one's up, 1 week one's down. And you never really learn because it's so erratic. I think they've lost some of that like German ruthlessness in them. In like they're so desperate to find the solution that they're just erratic like in their approach. So who knows? Can Mercedes get back? Maybe that's the subject for the comments. Let us know. Do you think it can happen? Let's finish there on Bahrain. It was a good season opener. Not a great one, but a good one. Let's move on to Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia last season was a nice tussle between Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. And Max Verstappen came out on top. if I remember rightly. I've got the thing up here.
He did.
And was there
I
contact?
also seem to
Was there
remember
contact?
it was a. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joe.
No, go on, Toby.
I
I'm
seem to
just-
remember it was also a bit of a crash fest. I feel like there was
yeah,
a lot of DNFs.
It's
I'm
a
just
brutal
loading.
track with
It
Yeah.
is
Oh,
a
yeah.
brutal track, and we did an entire video on whether the track is safe. Yeah, there were oh,
There was only
um,
13 finishes.
13 finishes, and Lance Stroll didn't actually complete all 50 laps. Yeah,
Well, there we go then. There's a good litmus test for Lance
and
Stroll.
Max won by half a second. So I think this weekend, well, sorry, 2 weekends time is gonna be a good indication. I think Bahrain, because the Red Bull was just so superior in terms of all round package. I think this will be the first indication if anybody has anything else to give this season. This will be it. I think it's going to be.
And
It's quick
also, just another quick one about Aston Martin. It was actually Hulkenberg driving for them, wasn't it? Because Vettel was still out.
with COVID.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how Aston Martin do.
They finished 12th and 13th last year,
Mhm.
last of the finishers. There's only going to be improvements there. Let's be honest. But I think it's going to be. I think we could see the top three. I think it'll be the same three as this weekend competing. And I think it'll be. I think the races where Max is going to dominate, he's going to be 11 seconds clear. But these races, I think they're going to be a lot tighter. And you're going to see, hopefully, 2 or 3 drivers battling it out for the race win. That's what I hope. Maybe I'm just optimistic.
Well, I think it helps, doesn't it, with we just said about the track being really brutal. So that's going to bring, you would think, some safety cars in at least, maybe even a red flag. I think we've had a few in the past at Saudi Arabia, even in the short time that we've been racing there. So yeah, I guess that helps with domination or excitement. We should see a completely different dynamic in the race.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for some predictions, lads. This year, what we're going to do, me and Toby are going to do our predictions, and then it's going to be me versus Toby versus our guests. So Matt, you're gonna have to rely on your teammates here. I mean, I'll mess it. I know everyone knows I'll mess it up for myself. So you don't have to worry about me. But you've got to rely on your teammates. So whoever's next up on the podcast, you've got a big act to follow. Otherwise, you're losing your job.
Well, I've got to
So
get it off to the start.
yeah, you've got to get it off to a good start. We didn't do Bahrain. So, Matt, we'll do race winner, pole sitter, and your surprise. 1 point for winner, 1 point for pole, and 3 for your surprise. And we'll tell you if you can have your surprise or not. It was a bit dubious last season.
Well, following the short and sweet message, Verstappen for pole and race win. I think that's a nice quick one. For surprise, you've put me on the spot here. Surprise. I think we will see. We won't see Mercedes. I think we'll see Ferrari getting onto the podium. That's not really a surprise.
No, I can't let you have that one. Sorry, Matt.
No.
It did get to the point last season where Hamilton on the podium was a surprise.
Maybe let's say a collision between the Ferrari drivers. Does that clash?
Yeah, you can have that.
Yeah,
you
sure.
can have that. yeah, sure, have that. Yeah,
I reckon
Ferrari collision.
This is the start of a Ferrari collision and a downfall between the drivers.
Yep. All right, Ferrari collision. That's fair enough. So Max, Ferrari collision. Toby, give me your predictions.
Well, as the reigning champ, I'm feeling quite confident with
Yeah.
these, So I'm gonna copy back, sorry, and go Max winner and pole. And my bold prediction is going to be a Lando Norris top 10, if that's allowed.
Yeah, you can have that because that's not happening. Well, I don't think it is, but yes, you can have Lando Norris top 10.
Is that
I'm
due
going to
to
go with.
retirements?
Sorry, what was that, Matt?
Yeah,
Is that due to the number of retirements?
do you know what? I didn't even think about that. So maybe Maybe I'm more confident with it now.
Well, he's got to avoid being one of the retirements first.
True.
I'm going to mix it up. Sergio Perez on pole. Red Bull is still on pole. Sergio Perez pole. And Max Verstappen win. And Pierre Gasly top 6 in his Alpine. I was quite. He didn't do great, but he didn't do badly. I think Alpine struggled a little bit this weekend.
Well, I mean,
think,
he did really well in the race.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's what I mean. Like, that's why I think he's going to take his confidence. He's just going to ride away to a comfortable P6. So that's my prediction. But we'll find out next time, 2 weeks' time, when we travel to Saudi Arabia. We don't literally, unfortunately. I'd love to. But we'll find out in 2 weeks' time when Formula One heads to Jeddah. But lads, we are running out of time. So I just wanted to finish off by saying thank you. I hope you enjoyed the season opener in Bahrain. Matt, we'll see you later in the season. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. I'll be glad to return and actually prove how well my predictions have gone.
Toby, as ever, thank you very, very much. You'll be back in 2 weeks' time.
Oh, of course I will, with my even better predictions and my 5 points in the bag.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 points all round. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Joe Tyrrell. This is the Runoff, the GP Blog podcast. Goodbye.
Michael, No, Mike, that was so not right. Get in there, Lewis. George Russell.